She asked if her dress made her look fat. You paused. You calculated. You crafted the perfect answer. You told her she looked beautiful no matter what she wore. And something shifted in her eyes. Something you could not name. The conversation continued, but something had changed. You failed a test you did not know you were taking. This video reveals what Arthur Schopenhauer understood about female testing that most men will never grasp: why women test, what they are actually measuring, and why your answer matters less than how you deliver it. Women have tested men since the beginning of human existence. This is not cruelty. This is not manipulation. This is evolutionary programming so deep that most women do not consciously know they are doing it. By the end of this video, you will recognize every test before it lands. You will understand what she is actually evaluating beneath the surface question. And you will know exactly how to respond in ways that build attraction rather than destroy it. Stay until the end. The final segment reveals the one response pattern that passes every test. Miss it, and you will keep failing evaluations you do not even see. Let me tell you about a man named David. David was intelligent, successful, genuinely kind. He treated women with respect and consideration. He thought carefully about every response. He aimed to say the right thing in every situation. He failed constantly. Women lost interest after a few dates. Relationships that started strong faded quickly. He could not understand what kept going wrong. The problem was not his answers. It was his approach to the questions. Schopenhauer wrote that women evaluate men through indirect means. Direct questions yield prepared answers. Indirect tests reveal true character. The woman who wants to know if you are strong does not ask if you are strong. She creates a situation where strength would show itself. This is brilliant strategy. It bypasses the conscious mind entirely. You cannot prepare for a test you do not recognize. Your response comes from reflex rather than calculation. And reflex reveals truth. Robert Greene documented this pattern across centuries of courtship. He observed that women develop sophisticated evaluation systems because the stakes of choosing poorly are enormous. A bad choice means vulnerability, means raising children with an inadequate partner, means years invested in someone who cannot provide what is needed. The testing is not optional. It is hardwired. Every woman does it whether she knows it or not. Machiavelli would recognize this as intelligence gathering. He wrote that wise princes test loyalty before depending on it. They create situations that reveal character before character becomes critical. Women do the same with potential partners. David treated every question at face value. When she asked if her dress made her look fat, he heard a question about the dress. He did not hear the test beneath. The test was not about the dress. The test was about him, his confidence, his willingness to speak truth, his ability to handle pressure without folding. His careful, calculated answer revealed everything she needed to know. He was afraid. He prioritized her approval over honesty. He could be manipulated through the threat of her displeasure. These revelations killed her attraction. Not because she wanted him to be cruel, because she needed him to be strong. And his careful answer proved he was not. Freud would explain this through evolutionary psychology. He observed that female mate selection involves evaluating male fitness across multiple dimensions: physical strength, emotional stability, social intelligence, resource acquisition. Direct evaluation is unreliable. Men lie. Men perform. Men present false fronts to gain access. Indirect testing penetrates these performances. It catches men off guard. It reveals what they actually are rather than what they claim to be. This is why tests often feel unfair. They are designed to feel unfair. The woman who gives you time to prepare defeats the purpose of the test. She needs to see you without preparation, without masks, without calculated responses. Jung would add that tests reveal the shadow, the parts of yourself you hide even from yourself. Under pressure, the shadow emerges. The test creates pressure specifically to see what emerges. David's shadow was fear. Fear of female disapproval. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of being rejected for honesty. His careful answers did not hide this shadow. They revealed it. The men who passed where David failed had different shadows. Or rather, they had integrated their shadows. They were not afraid of female disapproval because they did not need female approval to feel worthy. This integration showed in their responses. Relaxed, unhesitating, sometimes playful, sometimes direct, always unafraid. The women felt this difference immediately. The fearful man broadcasts fear. The integrated man broadcasts solidity. And solidity is precisely what the test is designed to detect. In the next segment, I reveal the 5 types of tests women use. Each type measures something specific. Understanding what she measures tells you exactly how to respond. Women use 5 distinct types of tests. Each measures a different quality. Recognizing which test you face determines your response. The first type is the compliance test. She asks you to do something. Hold her purse. Change your plans. Skip time with friends. Agree with her opinion. The request itself varies. The underlying question remains constant. Will you abandon yourself to please me? Schopenhauer identified compliance as the death of attraction. He observed that the man who agrees with everything becomes invisible. His personality disappears into accommodation. He becomes a mirror reflecting only what she projects. This is not what she wants, even when she thinks she wants it. The compliance test measures your boundaries. Do you have lines that cannot be crossed? Do you maintain identity under pressure? Or do you dissolve into whatever she requires? Robert Greene noted that powerful figures throughout history maintained non-compliance strategically. They understood that constant agreement signals weakness, that occasional disagreement demonstrates independent thought, that boundaries create respect. The man who fails compliance tests becomes a servant. The man who passes them becomes an equal. The second type is the loyalty test. She mentions an attractive friend. She describes a man who approached her. She asks what you would do if you broke up. She watches your reaction carefully. The loyalty test does not measure whether you will cheat. It measures your emotional stability when loyalty is questioned. The insecure man reacts with jealousy, with interrogation, with visible disturbance. His reaction reveals that her loyalty is not assumed, that he doubts his own value, that other men represent genuine threat. The secure man remains calm. He may tease. He may show mild amusement. He does not perform anxiety because he does not feel it. His response reveals that he assumes her loyalty because he knows his own worth. Machiavelli would recognize this as a test of internal fortification. The prince who panics at rumors of betrayal invites actual betrayal. The prince who remains composed maintains the appearance of strength even under pressure. The third type is the congruence test. She challenges something you said. She questions your beliefs. She pushes back on your opinions. She watches to see if you fold. The congruence test measures whether you actually believe what you claim, whether your positions are genuine or performance, whether pressure can separate you from yourself. Jung would call this testing the persona versus the self. The persona is the mask we wear socially. The self is who we actually are. The congruence test determines whether your expressed identity matches your actual identity. David failed congruence tests constantly. He stated opinions, then abandoned them when challenged. He agreed with her corrections even when he did not actually agree. His words said one thing. His retreats said another. The men who passed held their positions, not with aggression, with calm certainty. They could hear disagreement without experiencing threat. Their sense of self did not depend on her validation. The fourth type is the investment test. She creates distance. She delays responses. She cancels plans. She watches to see how you react to reduced investment. The investment test measures your emotional independence. Can you handle uncertainty? Do you panic when attention withdraws? Does your well-being depend on her consistent engagement? Schopenhauer wrote about the will seeking what it cannot easily have. The investment test determines whether you will chase scarcity or maintain composure. The man who chases proves his dependence. His frantic pursuit reveals that her attention is necessary for his stability. This dependence repels because it transfers power entirely to her. The man who remains stable proves his independence. His continued contentment reveals that her attention is wanted but not needed. This independence attracts because it demonstrates self-contained value. The fifth type is the fitness test. She creates a problem to see how you solve it. She presents a challenge to see how you respond. She introduces stress to see how you handle pressure. The fitness test measures your capacity to navigate difficulty. Can you lead through chaos? Can you remain functional under pressure? Can you protect and provide when circumstances demand it? Freud would connect this to primal evaluation. The female organism assesses male fitness for survival scenarios. The fitness test creates miniature survival scenarios to observe response. The man who crumbles under small pressure would crumble under large pressure. The man who handles small challenges demonstrates capacity for larger ones. These 5 tests cover the territory of female evaluation: compliance, loyalty, congruence, investment, fitness. Every test you face falls into one of these categories. Recognizing the category tells you what is being measured. Knowing what is measured tells you how to respond. David failed because he did not recognize tests when they arrived. He took everything at face value. He answered questions rather than passing evaluations. The men who succeeded recognized tests instantly. They felt the evaluation beneath the surface. They responded to what was actually being asked rather than what was literally said. In the next segment, I reveal why these tests exist at such a deep level, what evolutionary pressures created them, and why fighting against them means fighting against millions of years of programming. Women test because evolution demanded it. Schopenhauer understood that human behavior is driven by forces far older than conscious thought. The will to life operates through us. It uses feelings and impulses to accomplish biological objectives we may never consciously recognize. Female testing is one such mechanism. It evolved because women who tested selected better mates. Women who did not test selected poorly. Over millions of years, testing became instinct. Consider the ancestral environment. No police, no courts, no social safety net. A woman's survival depended entirely on the quality of her mate selection. Choose a weak man and face starvation when resources grew scarce. Choose an unstable man and face violence when stress accumulated. Choose a disloyal man and face abandonment when younger options appeared. The stakes of choosing poorly were death, not metaphorical death, actual death, and the death of children who depended on parental partnership. Robert Greene documented how this pressure shaped female psychology across all cultures. He observed that women developed remarkably similar evaluation systems despite geographic separation. The consistency suggests evolutionary origin rather than cultural construction. Machiavelli would recognize this as rational strategy under conditions of vulnerability. He wrote that the prince in a weak position must evaluate allies with extreme care. A single miscalculation can prove fatal. The testing that seems excessive to outside observers makes perfect sense to those who face the consequences of error. Women face consequences that men do not fully appreciate. Pregnancy creates vulnerability lasting years. Childcare creates dependence that men can walk away from more easily. The asymmetry of reproductive investment creates asymmetry in evaluation intensity. Freud connected this to what he called the reality principle. The ego mediates between desire and reality. Female testing is the ego protecting the organism from desire that might lead to destructive choices. She may feel attracted to you, but attraction alone is insufficient evidence of your fitness. The tests verify what attraction suggests. They seek proof that the feeling is justified. This is not distrust of you specifically. This is distrust built into female psychology by millions of years of selection pressure. The women who trusted too easily did not survive to pass on their genes. Jung would add that these patterns exist in the collective unconscious. They are not learned. They are inherited. Every woman carries the testing instincts of countless generations of ancestors. David thought he could reason his way past tests. He believed that demonstrating good intentions would make testing unnecessary. He did not understand that tests are not about what you intend. They are about what you are. Intentions mean nothing to the unconscious evaluation system. A weak man can intend to be strong. An unstable man can intend to be stable. A disloyal man can intend to be faithful. Intentions are merely words. Tests measure something deeper than words can reach. Nietzsche wrote about the body's wisdom exceeding the mind's understanding. The body knows things the conscious mind cannot access. Female testing taps into this bodily wisdom. It evaluates at a level where deception becomes nearly impossible. Your conscious mind can craft careful answers. Your body cannot hide its reactions. The test observes the body, while the mind focuses on words. The truth emerges despite your best efforts to conceal it. This is why tests feel unfair. You are being evaluated by systems you cannot directly control. Your preparation is useless because the test bypasses preparation entirely. Hobbes would recognize this as rational self-protection in a state of nature. In Antoine, he wrote that in the absence of guaranteed safety, every individual must look to their own security. Female testing is precisely this self-protection. She cannot rely on your promises. She cannot trust your performance. She must verify through methods that reveal truth regardless of what you want to show. The ancestral women who survived passed this testing instinct to their daughters. Generation after generation, the instinct strengthened. The women who tested most effectively selected the best mates and produced the healthiest offspring. You are now evaluated by instincts refined across millions of years. Fighting against this evaluation is fighting against the deepest programming of female psychology. Acceptance is the only rational response. Accept that tests will come. Accept that they serve a purpose. Accept that passing them requires genuine development rather than clever strategy. Marcus Aurelius would counsel this acceptance as the foundation of peace. He wrote that resisting nature creates suffering. Aligning with nature creates harmony. The tests are natural. Resistance is futile. Alignment is wisdom. In the next segment, I reveal the core truth that determines whether you pass or fail. The single quality that all tests ultimately measure. Develop this quality, and tests become opportunities rather than obstacles. Every test measures the same thing. Beneath the surface variations, past the different categories and types, all tests converge on a single question. The question that determines everything. Are you a man whose frame is stronger than mine? Schopenhauer would call this the evaluation of will. The will is the fundamental force that drives all life. The stronger will dominates. The weaker will submits. In relationships, the will that holds frame controls the dynamic. Frame is your reality, your sense of what is true, your interpretation of events, your emotional state in any situation. Frame is who you are when the world pushes against you. When she tests, she pushes against your frame. She introduces her interpretation, her reality, her emotional state. She watches to see if you abandon yours for hers. The man who adopts her frame fails. He shows that his reality is weaker, that her push displaced his center, that pressure can move him from himself. The man who holds his frame passes. He shows that his reality is solid, that her push met resistance, that pressure reveals strength rather than weakness. Robert Greene wrote extensively about frame control. He observed that powerful figures throughout history maintained their interpretation of events regardless of opposition. They did not argue for their frame. They simply inhabited it with such certainty that others began to doubt their own. This is what she evaluates. Not whether you agree with her, whether you have a self solid enough to hold when pushed. Machiavelli would recognize frame as the foundation of power. He wrote that the prince who lets others define his reality loses control of his domain. The prince who defines reality for others expands his influence. In relationships, the same dynamic operates. The person whose frame dominates shapes the relationship. The person whose frame collapses gets shaped by it. David had weak frame. Every test pushed him off center. Her questions made him doubt. Her challenges made him fold. Her emotions became his emotions because he had no stable emotions of his own. Women felt this weakness immediately, not through his words, through his energy, the way he shifted when pressed, the way his eyes sought approval, the way his body tightened with anxiety. Weak frame cannot be hidden. It radiates from every pore. It announces itself in posture, breathing, vocal tone, and micro-expressions. The woman's evaluation system reads these signals with devastating accuracy. Jung would connect frame to the integrated self. The man who has done his psychological work has a stable center. He knows who he is. He has reconciled his contradictions. His identity does not depend on external validation. This man cannot be easily displaced. Push him, and he does not move. Challenge him, and he remains curious rather than defensive. His frame is not performance. It is the natural expression of genuine development. The man who has not done this work has an unstable center. He does not fully know himself. His contradictions remain unresolved. His identity requires constant external reinforcement. This man displaces easily. Every push moves him. Every challenge triggers defense. His frame is performance that collapses under sustained pressure. Freud would say that frame reflects the relationship between ego and superego. The strong frame has an ego comfortable with itself. It does not constantly seek approval from internalized parental figures. It acts from self-acceptance rather than self-doubt. The weak frame has an ego in constant conflict. It seeks approval it cannot find internally. It depends on external validation because internal validation is absent. Women sense this distinction immediately. The man seeking approval radiates need. The man who has self-acceptance radiates sufficiency. Need repels, sufficiency attracts. The practical implication is that passing tests requires more than technique. It requires genuine frame development. You must actually build a stable center. You must actually know who you are. You must actually stop needing approval to feel worthy. This is not quick work. It takes years. It requires facing uncomfortable truths about yourself. It demands that you resolve internal conflicts rather than suppress them. But there is no shortcut. Technique without frame is transparent. Women see through performed confidence within minutes. Only genuine frame survives sustained testing. Nietzsche would call this self-overcoming. The process of becoming who you are by defeating what holds you back. The man engaged in self-overcoming develops frame naturally. His struggle creates the strength that tests evaluate. Epictetus taught that the only true possession is one's character. External things can be taken. Character remains. The man who has built character has built frame, and frame is what every test measures. In the next segment, I reveal specific response strategies for each test type. How to handle compliance tests without becoming a pushover. How to navigate loyalty tests without revealing insecurity. How to pass every evaluation while remaining authentic. Strategy differs by test type. Let me show you how to handle each one. For compliance tests, the response is calibrated non-compliance. She asks you to hold her purse. You can hold it. But your energy matters more than the action. Hold it with amusement rather than submission. Or playfully decline. Or negotiate terms. The point is not to refuse everything. The point is to demonstrate that your compliance is chosen rather than automatic. That you consider requests rather than obeying reflexively. That your agreement comes from willingness rather than fear. Schopenhauer would say that the will must express itself. Automatic compliance suppresses the will. Considered response expresses it. The woman senses whether your will remains active or has gone dormant. Robert Greene documented how powerful men handled requests. They granted some and denied others according to their own judgment. Their inconsistency demonstrated that they could not be controlled through expectation. Their willingness demonstrated generosity. Their refusals demonstrated boundaries. For loyalty tests, the response is amused confidence. She mentions the attractive coworker. You smile. Maybe you tease her about having options. Maybe you agree that he sounds impressive. Maybe you change the subject entirely because it does not merit attention. What you do not do is react with visible jealousy. Interrogate her interest. Demand reassurance. Display the insecurity she is testing for. Machiavelli would counsel projecting strength, especially when strength is questioned. The prince who shows fear at whispered threats invites more whispers. The prince who shows calm dismisses them into irrelevance. Your amused confidence communicates that you do not perceive threat, not because you are naive, because your value is secure enough that competition does not frighten you. For congruence tests, the response is calm persistence. She challenges your opinion. You hear her challenge, you consider it genuinely. Then you either maintain your position with added nuance or genuinely update based on new information. What you do not do is abandon your position simply because she disagreed. Pretend to agree while internally resisting. Become aggressive in defense of your views. Jung would emphasize that true congruence requires actual conviction. You cannot fake genuine belief under pressure. The test reveals whether your positions are truly yours or merely borrowed. If you find yourself unable to defend a position, perhaps you should not have stated it. Better to have fewer positions held strongly than many positions held weakly. For investment tests, the response is mirrored calibration. She reduces her investment. She texts less. She seems less enthusiastic. She creates distance. You match her energy without dramatizing. You do not chase harder. You do not interrogate the distance. You adjust your own investment to approximate hers. Schopenhauer wrote that pursuing what retreats shows desperation. The will that chases diminishing returns reveals itself as lacking alternatives. The will that accepts recalibration demonstrates options and self-respect. This does not mean cold punishment. It means calibrated response. If she invests less, you invest proportionally less. If she reinvests, you can reinvest. The mirror shows her that you are responsive, but not desperate. For fitness tests, the response is calm problem-solving. She presents a challenge. Something goes wrong. Stress enters the situation. She watches your response. You address the problem directly, without panic, without blaming, without becoming paralyzed. You demonstrate that challenges do not overwhelm you, that you remain functional under pressure, that you can lead through difficulty. Freud would connect this to ego strength. The strong ego handles reality without distortion. It sees problems as problems rather than catastrophes. It responds with appropriate action rather than disproportionate emotion. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He faced genuine catastrophes as emperor: war, plague, betrayal. He met each with measured response. His meditations reveal a man who trained himself to handle whatever arose with equanimity. This training is available to you. Every small challenge is practice for larger ones. Every problem solved with composure builds the capacity to solve larger problems. The fitness test measures the accumulated result of this practice. Across all test types, certain principles apply universally. First, maintain physical composure. Your body reveals more than your words. Relaxed posture, steady breathing, unhurried movement. These communicate frame strength regardless of what you say. Second, respond rather than react. Reaction is automatic and defensive. Response is chosen and considered. Even a brief pause before speaking demonstrates that you control your output. Third, maintain good humor. Tests are not attacks. They are evaluations. Treating them as attacks shows that they threaten you. Treating them as normal shows that you understand the game. Fourth, stay genuinely curious. Her tests reveal how she thinks, what she worries about, what she values. The test is information about her as much as evaluation of you. David treated tests as obstacles to overcome through careful strategy. The men who succeeded treated tests as opportunities to demonstrate attractive qualities. The frame shift changes everything. In the next segment, I reveal what happens when you fail tests, the consequences of failure, and whether recovery is possible once you have shown weakness. Failed tests have consequences. Understanding these consequences motivates the development that prevents failure. The first consequence is attraction decay. Every failed test removes attraction. Not dramatically, incrementally. Each failure deposits a small withdrawal from an account that started with limited funds. Schopenhauer wrote about desire operating through evaluation. The will assesses constantly. Each datum updates the assessment. Failed tests are negative data that shift the overall evaluation downward. This process is largely irreversible. You cannot argue your way back to previous attraction levels. You cannot explain away the evidence. The unconscious evaluation system does not accept appeals. Robert Greene observed that reputation operates similarly. Each action either builds or erodes reputation. Erosion accumulates. The great figure who stumbles publicly finds that public perception shifts quickly and recovers slowly. The second consequence is increased testing. Failure does not end testing. It intensifies it. The woman who senses weakness probes deeper. She wants to confirm what she suspects. She wants to see if the failure was isolated or pattern. More tests follow failed tests, and these subsequent tests are harder to pass because her expectation of failure primes her to see failure. Machiavelli would recognize this as the dynamic of perceived weakness. He wrote that subjects who sense weakness in the prince begin to test limits. What began as single probes becomes sustained pressure. The weak prince faces more challenges precisely because his weakness has been revealed. David experienced this intensification. His early failures triggered more tests. His continued failures created contempt. What began as evaluation became confirmation of unworthiness. The third consequence is frame capture. Repeated failure surrenders frame entirely. You no longer have your own reality. You exist within her reality. Your emotional state becomes dependent on her emotional state. Your interpretation of events becomes subordinate to hers. Jung would call this possession by the anima. The man who cannot maintain his own center becomes dominated by his internal feminine image, projected onto the external woman. He loses himself in her completely. This capture feels like love, but functions like dissolution. You disappear into her. Your preferences become her preferences. Your opinions become her opinions. Your identity becomes whatever gains her approval. Women do not want this. The captured man has nothing left to offer. His independence was the attractive quality. Surrender eliminates the very thing that attracted her. The fourth consequence is respect collapse. Respect requires seeing someone as equal or superior. Failed tests reveal inferiority. The woman cannot respect what she perceives as beneath her. Freud would connect this to the superego's evaluative function. We internalize standards of worth. Observation of others is measured against these standards. The man who fails tests falls below the standard. Respect withdraws accordingly. Without respect, intimacy becomes impossible. She may feel pity. She may feel obligation. She may feel comfort with your predictable presence. But she cannot feel respect. And without respect, desire cannot survive. The fifth consequence is relationship deterioration. These accumulated consequences produce tangible relationship damage. She becomes irritable, critical, distant. She begins noticing flaws that were always present, but previously overlooked. Schopenhauer wrote that love covers faults, while its absence reveals them. The fading attraction caused by failed tests removes the covering. Suddenly, everything you do irritates her. Not because you changed, because her perception changed. David watched his relationships follow this pattern. Early enthusiasm faded into tolerance. Tolerance faded into irritation. Irritation faded into the conversation that ended things. He never connected the pattern to his failed tests. He thought he was simply unlucky in love. He did not understand that his failures created the outcomes he blamed on fate. Now for the crucial question. Can failed tests be recovered? The honest answer is partial. Early failures can be overcome through subsequent passes. A single stumble does not define you, but sustained failure creates perception that becomes very difficult to shift. The woman who has seen consistent weakness will interpret ambiguous behavior as weakness. Her frame now filters your behavior. She sees what she expects to see. Recovery requires dramatic shift, not gradual improvement. Sudden and visible transformation. Something that interrupts her established perception forcefully enough to make her question her conclusions. Such dramatic shifts are rare. Most men who fail consistently continue failing. The pattern becomes identity. The identity becomes destiny. Epictetus would counsel prevention over cure. He taught that maintaining virtue is easier than restoring it once lost. Maintaining frame is easier than recovering it once surrendered. This is why understanding tests matters before failure occurs. The man who recognizes tests early maintains frame from the beginning. He never surrenders the ground that is so difficult to reclaim. Marcus Aurelius would add that preparation, determines outcome. The athlete who trains performs well. The athlete who does not train performs poorly. No amount of effort during the event compensates for absent preparation. Your preparation is happening now. You are learning what tests are. You are understanding what they measure. You are developing the frame that passes them. In the final segment, I reveal the master key, the single shift in perspective that transforms tests from threats into opportunities, the reframe that makes passing not only possible but natural. The master key is this: tests are not problems. They are opportunities. Schopenhauer wrote that suffering contains the seeds of liberation. The very pressure that causes pain also creates the possibility of transcendence. Tests operate the same way. Each test is a chance to demonstrate attractive qualities, a chance to show strength you would otherwise have no occasion to display, a chance to communicate through action what words can never prove. The man who dreads tests misses this opportunity. He approaches each evaluation defensively. His resistance creates tension. His anxiety leaks through his composure. His dread becomes the very weakness that causes failure. The man who welcomes tests transforms the dynamic entirely. He sees each test as an invitation, a chance to prove what he knows about himself, an opportunity to show her what she hopes to find. This reframe is not delusion. It is accurate perception. Tests genuinely are opportunities. The shift is from seeing one truth to seeing a larger truth. Robert Greene documented how master seducers approached obstacles. They did not resent resistance. They embraced it. Every obstacle was material for demonstration. Every challenge was context for triumph. The test that could destroy you can also elevate you. The same moment contains both possibilities. Your approach determines which actualizes. Machiavelli would recognize this as the opportunity within adversity. He wrote that fortune favors the bold. The bold see opportunity where others see only threat. They act while others hesitate. They advance while others retreat. In testing, boldness means welcoming the evaluation, not with arrogance, but with genuine readiness. You have done the work. You have built frame. Now you have the chance to show what you have built. Jung would call this individuation through challenge. The self develops through confronting difficulty. The man who avoids tests avoids development. The man who engages them grows through engagement. Each past test strengthens frame further. Success creates confidence. Confidence enables future success. The upward spiral begins with welcoming the first test rather than fleeing it. The practical application is attitude adjustment. When you feel a test arriving, notice your internal response. If you feel dread, acknowledge it. Then consciously reframe. This is not an obstacle. This is an opportunity. She is not attacking me. She is inviting me to demonstrate value. This moment could strengthen her attraction rather than weaken it. Freud would connect this to anxiety management. Anxiety comes from perceived threat. Remove the perception of threat, and anxiety dissolves. Tests are only threatening if you believe you will fail. Believe you will pass, and threat disappears. The men who attract have this belief. Not arrogance. Genuine confidence built on genuine development. They have done the work. They know their frame is solid. Tests do not threaten, because tests reveal what they are ready to show. David lacked this confidence because he had not done the development. He knew his frame was weak. He knew tests would reveal weakness. His dread was accurate prediction of likely outcomes. You can choose differently. You can do the work that creates genuine confidence. You can build frame through the practices we have discussed. Physical development, mission cultivation, emotional integration, shadow work. When the work is done, tests become welcome. Not because you enjoy pressure, because you enjoy demonstrating what pressure reveals. Nietzsche wrote about amor fati, love of fate, the embrace of everything that happens as necessary for becoming who you are. Tests are part of your fate. They are necessary for your development. Embracing them is embracing your own evolution. The woman who tests you is serving your growth, whether she knows it or not. Her evaluation pushes you toward becoming better. Her pressure either breaks you or strengthens you. The choice is yours. Choose strengthening. Choose growth. Choose to see her tests as the gifts they actually are. Epictetus taught that we cannot control what happens, but we can control our response. Tests will happen. They are not optional. Your response to them is entirely within your control. Choose the response that serves you. Choose welcome over dread. Choose opportunity over obstacle. Choose demonstration over defense. Marcus Aurelius would counsel gratitude for difficulty. He wrote that the obstacle becomes the way. The very thing that seems to block you is actually the path forward. Tests seem to block attraction. They are actually the path to deeper attraction. The woman wants to find a man worth choosing. The test is her method of finding. When you pass, you become that man in her perception. When you welcome the test, you show confidence that makes passing more likely. This creates virtuous cycle. Welcome leads to confidence. Confidence leads to passing. Passing leads to attraction. Attraction leads to more tests, which you again welcome. The alternative is vicious cycle. Dread leads to anxiety. Anxiety leads to failure. Failure leads to attraction decay. Decay leads to more intense tests, which you again dread. You choose which cycle you enter. Not through luck, through preparation and attitude. Do the work. Build the frame. Then welcome the tests that let you show what you have built. Schopenhauer's brutal truth is that tests will never stop. They are built into female psychology permanently. But this truth is only brutal if you resist it. Accepted fully, the truth becomes liberating. You stop wishing tests would stop. You start preparing to pass them. You stop resenting her evaluation. You start appreciating the opportunity. This shift changes everything, not just in attraction, in your entire orientation toward life. Challenges become opportunities. Pressure becomes possibility. Tests become gifts. The shadow mind has shown you what women test for and why. What you do with this knowledge determines whether tests break you or make you. The choice belongs entirely to you.